Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Magnate, the First City, which is a new property building, city building, wheeling dealing kind of game that's on Kickstarter right now, and the campaign page will be linked in the description and up in the corner there if you would like to check it out. As always, I mentioned up front that I was paid by the publisher to make this overview video. So what is it about? This is our city here, made up of a central board and then 6 boards around it, shuffled and put out at random. There are a few not in the game at the moment, and the differences on the tiles are basically these blocked off spaces here. It's always a grid of 9 spaces, but some are blocked off and will give bonuses if certain types are next to it. So, you know, the housing wants to be next to a nice secluded forest here. You know, there's a great big truck car park or a shipping company or something over here. They obviously want to be next to industry. Industry would very much like to be there. So we shuffle all this out, and there are some buildings in the middle that will help us to start off. Basically, we aren't just starting from scratch. And I've started us around into the game, so we can see a couple of things out on the board, so I can show you all of the bits of the round. I've set it up for 2 players, by the way, me and Little Glass Marty. And the only thing that changes is the number of for sale signs that start out in the game, and the tenants that are available, the numbers of each type. So at the start of the game, I believe there's 1 office, 1 industry, and then 4 home and 4 retail tenants. And so the first thing that we have in a round is a bid for turn order, and we'll hopefully give you a better idea of why that matters so much later on. But it's the first player marker passes to the next player, and then they can start the bidding. You don't have to bid if you don't want to, but in terms of attractive bits of land that are available or tenants that are in short supply, it can be really, really important to go first. Next up, we go to attract tenants. So in this phase, you'll pick one of your buildings that you've got out on the map and try and attract tenants to it. So we've each only built 1 type of building at the moment, and we've built different buildings. So this would be an influence for turn order if, like at the very start of the game, only 1 industry had come out, if we hadn't drawn a card that made more come out, and we'd both gone for industry because it was attractive for whatever reason, then, yeah, if all of the for sale signs had been around this neighboring bonus that gave you extra incentive to build industry next to here, so this shipping company, this truck car park or whatever, then yeah, you might have both gone for that. So in that case, you would really want to go for turn order because hopefully you succeed at attracting the tenant, and you want to go first because it's the only tenant of that type available. So in this, you pick a type. So Marty would pick his industry here. He's built a level 1 industry, a little warehouse there, a little factory. And the game does come with these. These are purely just for visual flavor. It comes with these little cards based on the type that you build that change the tile. Instead of it just being plain grass here, it makes it a nice little car park and stuff for the factory. Nice little touch there. So looking at the player aid, we can see that Marty's industrial unit can have 1 tenant in it. There is a tenant available that you can hope to attract here. And we can see from the tenant types on this board here that industry would very much like to be next to housing or other industry. So to attract these tenants, we're going to be using dice. And you start the game with 4 advertising tokens that can be used, because for each industry tenant, Marty needs to roll 4 4s or greater, as you can see on the player aid. I should have pointed out the player aid before I got a handful of dice, shouldn't I? But yeah, you need 4 4s. So Marty could, if he wanted to take no risks, he could use all of his advertising markers because they count as a 5, which, you know, is a success for most types. So we're concerned about the lowest number of tenants of either housing or industry. So to do that, we can have a look around, and this concerns nearby things. So they are in tiles that are next to yours. So this is one great big tile here and here and here and here. So we can see nothing's been built here. It's too early in the game. I haven't got any tenants. So we can look at industrial tenants. These tiles here each have 3 person icons. That's the number of tenants in there. Even though it's just 1 tile, their population is 3. So industry has 6. And these apartment blocks here each have 3 home tenants, and they count as 1 each. So it's 6 either way. So Marty's going to get to roll 6 dice here. And he has to, before he rolls, he has to commit the advertising tokens. If you have neighboring bonuses, they can increase the roll. They don't give you more dice, but they can help you with your roll. Marty hasn't got any of that. So I think he is going to go a little bit safe. He'll spend 2 advertising tokens, and so he's guaranteed himself 2 of the 4 that he needs. And hopefully with 6 dice, he should be able to roll 2 that are 4 or better. And he does manage it. He wouldn't have done it. He needed at least 1 advertising token, but he can use 2 dice. And so he has succeeded at attracting a tenant. And so he can grab an industry tenant and place it there. And once you've sorted all this out, all of your previous tenants of buildings that you still own, because you do sell a lot of stuff in this game, all of the tenants that still occupy buildings that you own will pay you their rent. And in this case of this industry, it's 600k. And so it's just an example, so I didn't go through the whole bidding against each other for turn order. But this could be a really big deal, because although we aren't competing for the same thing, what Marty is doing is really going to negatively affect me in a way. Now, I did bid for first player in the first round the most. I've probably paid a little bit too much, because I saw this plot here was for sale that was next to 2 different neighbouring bonuses for home type units. So, home type units? Houses. So, yeah, I really wanted to go there to get an extra boost. But Marty putting his industry right next to my lovely housing estate, he's made this unattractive for other people, because there is now a neighbouring bonus on his tenant here. His factory's bringing in all this pollution and stuff, and yeah, it's not as attractive to come to my lovely house anymore, even though it's next to this amazing water park, it looks like. So I will try and attract tenants as well. So for little houses, you can only have 1 tenant in those. It was quite cheap to build though. And they work in a similar way. They want the lowest tenants out of either office or retail. So for that, we're going to have to look in the middle, and it's 3, 6 for office, or 1, 2, 3, 4 for retail. I'm only going to get to roll 4 dice. I only need a pair of 5s or better. So that's a lot easier to do. Do I commit an advertising token to it? Because what I've got is your neighbouring bonuses would add 1 to everything that you roll. And I've got 2 positive neighbouring bonuses. I've also got a negative 1 though. I think I'm going to commit 1 just in case, because I'm a bit worried. So that counts as a 5 already. And so we roll, and everything is increased by 1. So I've got myself a 7 there. So I have got 2 dice that would attract the single tenant that I need to get in there. So, and otherwise I roll pretty badly. Later on, when you get these bigger types that, you know, apartment blocks can hold 5 different tenants, you want as many dice as possible, and you want to try and be attracting all of those in one great big go. For my house, though, there's only 1 tenant in there. I only get 300,000. So we've attracted tenants now. The advertising tokens that we spend go out onto the board here. They are going to have an influence at the end of the round. Next up, we go on to actions. And so Marty, as the first player, would take his first action. We get 3 actions, and we alternate until everybody has gone. What can you do on your turn? You can either buy land. Now, the 4 sale signs that go out are randomly placed at the end of each round. More stuff will come up for sale here. But you can always buy something that's adjacent to where you already are by paying double the land value. So at the moment, land value is 400,000 to buy anything with a for sale sign on it. Otherwise, though, I could build adjacent to here if I really want to build things that, for example, would get boosted by houses, or like offices and retail really want to be next to houses, or maybe industry, because I'm not too bothered about taking this as much, although for the sale price you don't want negative neighbouring bonuses. I probably want to offset Marty's negative industry thing by putting some retail next to here, for example. So you either buy land that's for sale for cheap, or you strong on people that don't quite want to sell by offering them double, and you can expand in that way. So one action is buy land, your other action is build. Now, it has to be a plot of land that you own. So in our 3 actions in the last round, what we both ended up doing was buying 2 plots of land and building on one of them. Obviously, there was the most competition here because the for sale signs happened to fall there. But other than that, I bought one over here because it's next to a house bonus and an industry bonus, so I could have my choice there. Marty went on one that's good for offices, bad for houses. And actually, no new for sale signs went out. We'll see how that can happen at the end of the round. But yeah, that's why it's looking a little bit sparse in this round, because 3 more should have gone out, but the wrong ones came out. So the things that you can build, there is, the types: houses, offices, retail, and industry. And there is kind of a small and a large version of each of these. And they're all, look at these 3D printed things. Look at the great big skyscraper office. The lovely design of all of these things. So you decide what you're going to build. The small version is probably affordable to you. The office is the most expensive. Where is it? 1.9 million. And you only start off with 2. And if you've been buying plots of land, you probably can't afford that right now. But yeah, to build a house, it only cost me 400,000. And I've earned 300,000 back by successfully attracting the tenant in there. So you can build one of these buildings, and it's completely up to you what you build. But the tenants and the bonuses and things are going to influence what you want to have there. You can do an advertising action and just take 2 advertising tokens from the bank. That's the only way you get more of those. You can consult, and you get the current land value. In this case, it'd still be 400,000. You get that in cash. So if you are just short of being able to do what you wanted to, you could get a little cash injection there. Or you can sell things, and there's a little bit of calculation going on into how much your stuff is worth. So this permanently gets rid of your stake in the land there. The tenants and everything stay after you've stopped owning it. You obviously don't get the income anymore, the rent every round. But you work it out in this way. It's land price, so that's 400,000, times basically the number of points that you get for your thing. So let's say that Marty wanted to sell his industry. He gets 1 for the land, 1 because there's a building on the land. Does he get any neighbor or building bonuses? No. Now, there are better, the expensive retail and the expensive office block do in themselves give themselves 1 extra bonus to this. So he gets 1 for the land, 1 for the building. The total population of the plot is 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then -1 for each penalty. He hasn't got any penalties. So he would multiply the land value, 400,000, times 5. So that would be 2 million. And yeah, for later on, or for more complicated things, there's this chart here. Might look like a ton of numbers to you, but it's basically a multiplication chart. Find the current land value, so 400k. Find your plot value, which was 5. There we go, 2 million. For the more complicated things here, it's very useful to just have an at-a-glance chart for that. So it basically cost Marty 300,000 to buy this land, because that's what the value was last round. It cost him 1 million to build the building. And it did cost him 2 advertising things to get the tenant, but the tenant did earn him 600,000 back, and he would get 2 million for selling this. And that is a way he can kind of fund just doing that more and more as he spreads out. And, building other industry now would be a bit more attractive in squares that are, nearby to industry tenants, because they want the lowest out of either houses or industry. I would have done even better, actually, because my house, it wouldn't sell for quite as much, but it cost me a lot less as well. So it was 300,000 for the land, 400,000 to build a house on it, and then I got myself a tenant. So my land value would be 1 for the land, 1 for the building. Neighbouring bonuses, I get 1, 2. So that kind of offsets. I've got 2 less population. I only get 1 more for my population, but I have got 2 neighbouring bonuses here. -1 for each penalty. Marty's giving me a penalty, though, so mine would only be 4. So mine would be 400,000 times 4, 1.6 million I would get from mine, but mine cost me significantly less than Marty's did to get out there. So after we've each taken our 3 actions, we then go to the property market, which is this board here, and we kind of see the repercussions of what we have done in a round. So the first section here looks at the remaining tenants. At the moment, we wouldn't have to worry at all. But if types started to run out because we'd kept building things of that type and attracting those tenants, when all 4 are available, nothing changes. If all 3 are available in a 2-player game, nothing changes. But if only 2 types are available, you draw 2 risk cards. And risk cards are going to keep coming up in this section. The risk cards, look at this crash meter here. They're going to make this crash meter fall down because this city has just changed its zoning regulations so that anybody can build anywhere. And so it's a mad dash to try and make as much money as possible. But as these prices are getting inflated more and more by the excitement of the property market and stuff, a crash is inevitable. And that's where these risk cards come in. So as tenants start to dry up, you can see how that would increase risk and uncertainty. So the risk cards tell us crash track -1. So we would move the crash marker from its starting position further along on the track. When it reaches here, the crash happens and the game ends. That's how it ends. It also tells us the post-crash price drop is -1 because this price meter is hopefully going to go really high up on here. But the price, you can sell all of your stuff for more and more and more as this races up. But if you don't sell it before the crash happens, you're going to have to accept the post-crash price. And these cards can make the price go quite far down. So we would move the crash track 1 and know that the post-crash price drop is going to be -1. And then the next card, it's another -1 for the post-crash price, but it's a -2 on the crash track. So already we're at 7 there. And as soon as it gets to 0, the crash happens. So that would only happen, if we'd attracted all of those tenants. Then we look at the current price, depending on the color of the current price. So while it's in green, we're not going to get any extra things. But as it gets into the higher levels here, we draw more and more and more risk cards. Then we look at advertising that we've spent. If nobody did any advertising this round, people would start to think, I'm not hearing anything about this amazing property opportunity anymore. Is it all going under? And we would draw another risk card, -3. It doesn't affect the price, but it's -3 already. That'd be pretty terrible for all this to happen in one round. If we've played 1 or 2 advertising tokens, nothing happens. If we play 3 or more, like we actually did this round, then the price marker goes up, and the crash marker goes along with it. And finally, we look at the number of plots that were sold. So if we didn't sell any, like we didn't this round, then it would move up 1 and we draw another risk card. But if Marty had gone for his sale, you take your thing out of the slot of the building and put it on here. Nicely shows that bit's covered up. So instead of drawing a risk card and only going up 1, we'd go up 2 instead. So finally, after we've sorted all of this out, at the end of the round, we draw 2 new tenant cards that tell us that an office tenant and 2 retail tenants are coming out. So they would fill back up in the market. And then 3 new for sale signs. So you just grab 3 of these for sale tokens here, and not 4, and you look at them one at a time. So the numbers on the edge of the central board here tell you what number that tile itself is. So 4, we look at 4 here, and the H space is now up for sale. And then it's going to be 3D. So 3D is now for sale. So luckily I didn't pay double for that. I could now, if I'm first player, I could grab that for cheap. And finally 1C, which... there we go. It fits in with an example very nicely. So this is what happened at the end of that first round. So 1C, you can see it's got a for sale sign crossed out because this is a neighboring bonus tile. We're never building anything on there. Unless this happens in setup, you redraw in setup, but if it happens in the middle of the game like this, you just discard that token and it's out of the game now. That happened to all 3 of them. Terrible luck. It's probably my bad shuffling. So we keep going like this until the crash happens. And so hopefully the price will have raced up somewhat. The crash happens, and then we go through all of the risk cards that we drew throughout the game. And so the price would crash in this instance, -1, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So land at the moment would have been worth 1.5 million. We drop it down 6 spaces and it's now only worth 900k. So that's not a terrible crash. It could, stuff could have been worth loads and you just didn't get the number of actions that you needed to be able to sell it all in time, and then it crashes all the way down, and yeah, that can really get you stuck. And so it's very much a game of trying to piggyback off other people, trying to see these opportunities as they come up, see the for sale signs come up against really nice bonuses. As we start to expand, as we start to have built more, we can see the bonuses that we create. Industry is a negative neighbor bonus for residential. Retail is great for office. Office is great for other offices and retail. So it's a nice little interlinking chain there. But as well as those bonuses themselves, they have their types that determine how many dice you're going to roll in the attract tenants phase. And so if you have your great big office skyscraper that you've paid, is it 9 million for this? No, 6 million. That would be crazy. 9 million. It's 6 million to build this thing, and it can fit 3 tenants in there. But to attract an office tenant, you need 4 5s. So yeah, attracting those all in one go, you would really hope that you had already attracted a load of office buildings or retail buildings around here, built next to a really nice neighboring bonus to beef up all of those roles and things. And seeing all of these opportunities come up, depending on who spots them or who sees the worth in them, who can calculate that properly, is going to affect how you will bid for turn order as well, because you can see when these things come up. If Marty has built his industry now, these neighboring bonuses, like right here, this neighboring bonus that's good for housing is now not so good because it's cancelled straight out. Whereas if somebody builds, an office building here, Marty's probably going to build an office building because there's this neighboring bonus printed on there. That's going to attract more office buildings and retail buildings because, right here, if there was already an office there, and office tenants increase offices and retail, then if this plot came up, or Marty might want to pay double so he could buy that plot as well, a retail would be great here because it's benefiting from this printed bonus for retail and the tenant itself. It's only different tenant types are going to give you a bonus. You couldn't just surround it by offices and have some Uber retail outlet here. But yeah, if he then puts a shop here, that would benefit from the office tenant and the printed bonus out here. And it would be another type itself for if he wanted to maybe get another office out here. That office would then benefit from the printed tile on the board, office tenants, and retail. And so that would be a great start. But if that for sale sign came out and it wasn't us paying double, then that would be another cause for a mad dash in the bidding for turn order, because we could see a really attractive thing had just come out. Similarly, if we were both trying to scramble around this board to put our office things down, there would be a scramble for first player to try and attract, the lone office tenant that's out there. So this is all for the basic game. There is an advanced game that you can play with tenant subtypes. You might have noticed at the bottom of the new Tenants card, it talks about basic retail and then a subtype of restaurant. Well, what we can do is play with these advanced types at the start of the game when we put just these generic tiles out here. We put them out like this, and then we turn them face up to show the types of each of these tenants. And these different types affect lots of different things. They pay different amount of rents. They provide different neighboring bonuses. They have different population amounts. They require different combinations of dice to attract those tenants. They provide different amounts of rent. The boutique here doesn't provide you any neighboring bonus at all. The convenience store, though, does housing and offices and 300,000 rent. But this one, if you want to forgo the bonuses, you could get 500,000 in rent. That would be great earlier on. So we lay these out basically, in the middle of the board. It just matters for the population that is out there, because the neighboring bonuses, they have to be right adjacent to the tile that's out there. But we put all of these out, and it also happens to the tenant pool as well. So you can see that we have the students here that don't provide any bonuses and provide quite low rent. But that's what most of these tenants that are available are out there. We could have the professional couple that will pay 300 again and give a bonus for retail that's nearby. They're professionals. They'll work there. They want more retail. The family will give bonuses to other houses that are around, and it's a family of people, so they'll pay 500k in rent rather than the standard 300. We have, the chemical plant. Instead of, just flipping these over because we didn't know what they were all playing the basic mode, flipping this over now, instead of being a negative to housing, this is a warehouse and doesn't negatively affect housing at all, but positively it impacts nearby industry. So we might attract more industry here, which then might end up negatively affecting my house. The chemical plant here negatively affects everything that isn't more industry. Nobody wants to be anywhere near that. So it gives you more things to think about in terms of the neighboring bonus things that are putting out. What is available out there? You know, you might be thinking about, do I attract people to my apartment block or my shopping mall? Well, actually, all the tenants that are available are students. So if I go for housing right now, maybe I want to relax on that a little bit, because I'll just be attracting in people that aren't going to pay very much rent or provide any bonuses at all. Or maybe you just want to fill things up with everything that's there. And you can see from the advanced tenant types here that you do need different combinations to attract these different types. You don't have to say which type you're trying to attract at the very start. You just have to pick the building as usual. But yeah, the chemical plant, for example, you want loads and loads of dice, or you want 7s over here. Yeah, it can really change things up based on that as well. If you've got in your mind which type of tenant that you want, it can really affect how you are spending your advertising bonuses, or how the neighboring bonuses can be vital. Especially, you know, if you want to attract people to the law firm and you need those 7s, you have to have neighboring bonuses, or you're never going to get that. And to get 5 7s as well, it could be a risky thing, but it can really pay off if you can manage to attract them in there. But as well as adding all of these extra things to think about, these extra decisions to pull you in different directions, it's also giving you some more flavor as well, that rather than just being factories and things, you can see that it's warehouses and chemical plants, and there's boutiques and restaurants and tech companies and things. It's an extra level of flavor that's out there. So I think I've shown you everything now. That is Magnate. If you would like to go over to the Kickstarter page, it's linked in the description. If you would like to know what I think about the game, then you can stick around. So I think Magnate is fantastic. You know, just the base structure of the game itself, the idea that we are, you know, you've got this city building thing, you've got the SimCity, there's probably another influence that I'm never mentioning, but the SimCity, like, you know, residential, industry, offices, you know, it's got elements of that in there. And you know, houses don't want to be next to industry. You want your retail next to housing and stuff like that. It's got that kind of relationship in it. Not exactly, but it's got that kind of familiarity to it. So we're doing our usual wheeling, dealing, buying these plots, building things on them, but it's all leading towards this inevitable crash that we know is going to happen, and we are all trying to predict. So you've got the main game itself. As I mentioned, you know, you are always trying to look for opportunities, trying to look for these good plots that come out, trying to see these combinations, trying to see what tenants are available. And okay, if I build this and then this and then this, maybe they'll all work together and get all of the bonuses that I need. Trying to see, oh, well, an office has been built there, so maybe that's the perfect space for my retail outlet, and so I can get I can expand out, I can buy that land and try and benefit off the good thing that another player has just done. It's got all of that in it, but at the same time, we know that this crash is coming, and some players will want that more than others. You know, if you have managed to make a load of money quickly, and especially if you've managed to sell all of your stuff as the game has gone on, that is kind of the extra gamble. You know, there's the gamble involved with, you know, how big a unit do I build, because it's going to cost a fortune, and can I fill it in the attract tenant stage? And even if I do fill it, is it going to give me enough rent? Is it going to give me enough of a plot bonus for it to sell for enough profit for all of this to have been worth it? And as the crash starts to look closer and closer and closer, you start to think, am I even going to be able to do this in time? But on the flip side of it, if you're completely organized and so confident that the crash is going to happen, that, you know, you sell off all of your stuff and just get ready for the end of the game, and then it doesn't happen, then everybody else has, you know, they've had another round to keep their engines going, to be earning more and more money, while you've kind of crossed your arms and said that it's over. There is always this uncertainty about it, and you have enough of an idea as to what's going to influence this. So some things are going to make more risk cards come out that are the thing that are going to make the crash happen. Some things will just influence the price, but yeah, you can have in mind, you know, from the advertising stage, you can see that, okay, well, we've had no advertising tokens played this thing, so I don't necessarily need to play an advertising token, but I'm the last player to go. Maybe I want to play one, so we're not going to draw a risk card this round. But why should I be the player that does that? No, we're going to draw a risk card and everyone's going to have to suffer. And similarly for the selling things, that's a nice kind of turn that happens towards the end as people start to accept that the crash is inevitable. There's a split between maybe people that are going to hold out and just hope that they will get a big payday from the crash not happening. But if everybody if a couple of players kind of start to think that, yeah, it's just happening, I'm spending all of my actions this round to just sell stuff. And even if just 2 people do that and you've got, 6 things sold, then this is different for a game with more players. But yeah, if people start to sell stuff and this ramps up, it's going to make the price shoot up, but it's going to make more and more risk cards come out. If in a 2-player game, in a round, we both spent all of our actions selling stuff, then we will be drawing 5 risk cards, which is a surefire way to pretty much make sure the crash happens. But yeah, in a game with more players, I think I played a 3-player game last year, so it was a little bit different. But yeah, I played a 3-player game, and that was interesting to see the split between the 3 of us as to who was going to just commit to the crash happening and just hope that it does once we've all sold all of our stuff. Because yeah, if you're the holdout and the crash happens and you haven't sold all your stuff, it's going to sell for the post-crash price, which could make or break you. You could have been doing so amazingly well, but just held out too long, and now all of your stuff is worth a fraction of what it used to be. The attract tenants part, I know that, yeah, it's got dice in it, which is always a concern for some people. And yeah, I've certainly done my fair share of complaining about dice. It's definitely, it's an integral part of the game. I think that, it's good because it's an influence in what types of building you are putting out there based on the populations and the tenants. You are trying to think of what's going to get you the most dice, the most opportunities to be able to attract those tenants. You do have the neighboring bonuses to influence it. The population is going to influence the actual number of dice. You can grab the advertising tokens out there. There are, enough things to mitigate it. As it does come down to it, if you do manage to get, 9 dice or whatever, and you just manage to roll 1s, then that's still going to be terrible. And somebody that just doesn't risk anything and manages to roll the perfect numbers that they need, that's still going to be an element of it. I absolutely don't think it's a make or break part of it, but it's still an element in there to be aware of. I think you've got a decent amount of knowledge beforehand of what you need and what's available, and especially with the advanced tenant types as well. It's not just one set in stone thing. You might not get the exact type you want, but you might be able to go for something else instead. I think that's another benefit to that. But yeah, there is that element of luck in that particular area of the game anyway. But yeah, and more about just the advanced tenant types. I love that element of it. It definitely kind of it takes it from, there are phases and things. There are some things to go through that it's not just a gateway game that anyone can just sit down and play based on nothing. It'll take a little bit of getting used to, I would imagine, just from having the different phases and how they work through. But the actual core of the game, there's not that many types. There's not that many types of tenants and things. It's quick enough to grasp this stuff that most of the decision space is based on what you and other players are doing, rather than can you fit all the rules in your head. Once you've got it down, it's very, very smooth. The advanced tenant types, though, just blow that up. I mean, wow, there's so much variation that goes into really such a little change that instead of just having one tenant type, they do different things. They are going to affect, your income amount or the neighboring bonuses they are giving, or how difficult they are to attract to the place in the first place. Yeah, it's terrible to say place when you're about to say first place. But yeah, I love that kind of explosion of just these different possibilities that can come out, both in your own thinking and surprises that other people can do. Rather than it just being a set in stone thing that when they build their retail unit down, that's okay, well, that's going to affect offices, so I can think about doing that. That's good in itself, but the added element of it might affect houses instead of just offices. It might affect houses and offices. It might affect other retail units. based on what you and other people are doing. There are a lot of different paths that it can go down as well. And as I think I mentioned, the flavor of it as well. I think it's really great that we now have kind of names for the buildings or types. You know, we can see that, oh, this is the district with the chemical plant. Everyone wants to keep away from that. It will add to the kind of little stories that are told as the city expands. And another thing for the flavor of it, it's such a tiny thing that it's just this, you know, deck of cards that you play that, you know, it's got these little kind of underneaths for all of the buildings. That instead of just having all of these buildings, yeah, it looks beautiful enough with, you know, the 3D printed pieces, even though these are prototype pieces, but as well as just having those out there, you know, matching up the right kind of foundation for all of these things to have underneath them as well is another lovely little touch. But anyway, I feel like I'm going on. I'll leave you there. I hope that this has given you some idea of what Magnate is like, and if you would be interested in backing it at all. If you'd like to see more videos, I've done hundreds on this channel at this point. Hopefully one will pique your interest, and if you would like to support the channel to keep existing, then it's patreon.com/slickerdrips, and I would really love your support. But thank you just for watching the video, and I will see you for the next game. Bye everyone.